I almost lost my life giving birth because of medical negligence, and the man who delivered my baby wasn't even a doctor. I didn't know what content warning to use, so please be advised that my post goes into detail about medical emergency and references blood and pain. No surgeries. So I gave birth on August 14th of this year to my second child. He is healthy and doing well and is over a month old now. I'm doing better physically, but it's all be replaying over and over in my mind and I can't stop it. Parts of it I don't even remember at all, but it comes back to me in bits and pieces. But I want to tell someone about the parts I do remember. It all bothers me so much and I don't think many people would understand. Especially not my family. So for some context, I had my first son at 21. It was a precipitous labor, which means he was out within 3 hours. I had no medication, no nothing. It was just me, boyfriend, and a bunch of nurses, no doctor. I was in a hospital, but what happened was I kept telling everyone the baby was coming now and no one believed me because it was my first labor and I was only 2 hours in. I had a second-degree tear but a healthy baby boy and was home in a couple days. Despite how scary it was, I felt great about it. Now this year, this is my second son. My plan was to go all natural again. I know it sounds crazy to some women, but it's what I wanted to do. Not because I thought I was Superwoman or something like that. My sister thinks I did it to brag, but I wanted to do it because that's what I did the first time and I liked it. I mean, I didn't like the pain, but I like being able to feel the contractions and know what my body is doing. Being in tune with my body. Now this time was different. On the 13th I had my weekly appointment with my OB. There was some fluid that could be discharged. OB did an amnesia test which checks for amniotic fluid. I got the results when I was at home already. She called to tell me it was positive and I needed to come to the hospital. She already told them I was coming. No contractions. I get to the hospital and I learned my water was ruptured near the top, which means only some of the water has trickled out, but they need all of it. So after being fully admitted, they came to break my water. Now that was taken care of, I was informed that my contractions needed to start within the next 3 hours or they would need to induce me themselves. This is because we don't know how long the amniotic sac has been ruptured and don't want to risk infections. I'm doing great. I'm excited and nervous, and I can't wait to meet my son. My boyfriend is beside me and I also had my sister too. We laughed about ridiculous stuff. 3 hours in and no contractions. So we agreed to Pitocin. 4 in Pitocin at a 6. I could read it on the monitor next to me. Contractions start shortly after. Nothing I couldn't handle yet. It felt like it did when I had my first son. I was ready. I was mentally ready and prepared and I was motivated. 30 minutes later, this male doctor, I'll call him Ted, walks in and says that my contractions were not where they needed to be and upped my Pitocin to an 8. They became more intense and it felt worse than the first time I had a baby. But I was pushing through. I was determined. 3 hours later, I've been having intense contractions and laying in the way they wanted me to because of the external baby monitors. I had zero rest. I was getting mentally exhausted since I couldn't keep a conversation and it was hard to talk at all, so I was in my head way too much, thinking too much. I felt like I needed to pee. So I went to the bathroom and before I sat down, it felt like I peed myself. I looked down and no. It was blood, lots of blood. I was ushered back to the bed and told everything was fine and that it was normal. But my sister said it never happened to her and she had 2 kids, and it didn't happen to me with my first either. I never heard of it happening before and I did lots of research on the subject because I was nervous. Now it's 9 p.m. and the male doctor comes back and my dilation is still at 2 centimeters. Then I saw him in the nude staring at the monitor as it printed out my contractions and my baby's heartbeat. It was 7 minutes of me wondering what the hell was wrong with my baby. I became stressed and even asked but was met with no answer. Then I was told everything was fine and my Pitocin was up to 12. After this happened, I couldn't take it anymore. I was exhausted already and I couldn't rest even for a second because the contractions lasted over a minute and hardly any time between them. At this point I was already just basically laying there with my eyes closed, groaning at each contraction. Once that updose hit me, it was basically war. The pain was so bad I couldn't handle it anymore. I told them I wanted an epidural. I was still a 2 after all this time and I was literally suffering, and I was at the point where I felt that if I didn't have a form of relief then I was going to pass out and not be able to have my baby. My boyfriend and sister asked me if I was sure because I've been super instant on not having one. I was asked 3 times and all 3 times I said I wanted it. Then I was asked a 4th time and that's when I just begged for it and for them to stop asking me. I was starting to lose my emotional grip on myself. Having the epidural in was difficult because the contractions were moving my weak body. This is when Ted comes back, but he comes back with a woman doctor. I'll call her Mary. Mary checked my dilation and then she says my water wasn't broken. So she herself breaks it right then and there. A huge pressure off me, it felt great. They also stopped the Pitocin at this time. My brain wasn't working at this time, but think about that. My water was supposedly broken. They had me on Pitocin June 8, 2012 for hours with no progress because I wasn't starting labor on my own. Probably because my water wasn't broken. But once it was in began my long journey of pain. Most of this blends together in my memory because for hours what was happening was this: the epidural would work for 2 minutes, then I'd be in pain. So I was turned on to my right side and it'd be fine for 10 minutes before I could feel it again, and then it'd be flipped to the other side. I was being flipped side to side all night long. I was in and out of consciousness this whole time. Then finally at 5 a.m. I woke up again, exhausted, but I didn't feel the same. I could see my sister and boyfriend were asleep. I don't know it was 5 a.m. at the time but was told later. The nurse walked in as I was waking up and she checked my dilation. It was a 10, so she gently woke up my sister and boyfriend and flipped the lights on. Some other nurses enter and so does Ted. That's when they turned on the sun. It was just lights, but it was extremely bright and aimed right at me. I understand why, but I literally couldn't open my eyes or they would hurt. The rest was just me pushing, 8 pushes, and I couldn't do it anymore. They kept telling me to push and I literally just couldn't. I tried but I couldn't. So they waited 3 contractions and then told me to try as hard as I could and they would help me. So I did. I almost passed out from it and they pulled the baby out for me during it. Then my baby was on my chest and I was crying and hugging him and comforting him as he cried. I never felt such overwhelming emotions before. Happy to see my child and relieved that all that pain was over. I ended up passing out right there. Nothing but black. I later woke up in a different room. What happened was, all the pressure from the contractions pushing the baby and amniotic sac against my cervix caused my cervix and parts of my uterus to become inflamed. That blood that poured out when I thought I had to pee was my cervix tearing a little. Then me passing out after. What? Because 1, I was beyond exhausted, and 2, I was hemorrhaging, and I almost lost my pulse according to boyfriend. He hugged me crying, saying he thought he was going to lose me and he couldn't even think about how he would have to tell our older son and then raise them both alone. Turns out Ted wasn't even a doctor, he was in medical school doing an internship. Mary told him what to do based off of what he told her. Mary thought the water was broken because Ted said it was. Ted never made sure of that, only a nurse did. Ted ended up being permanently dismissed and my insurance didn't have to pay a dime for my stay. I guess that was just juice, but I'm still left with my horrible experience and my boyfriend is terrified. We both wanted more than 2 kids, but since this experience he said he doesn't want any more because he doesn't want to lose me. I still want more one day, but I can't because I don't want to terrify my boyfriend into thinking he might lose me again. Anyway, I'm better now and my baby is thriving. My boyfriend is still insistent to not having any more kids. If we did, he said we can adopt or something like that. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Extra info to clarify: if the water is broken, that means the baby's head can push on the cervix and start dilation. The baby's head is what causes dilation. So breaking the water alone should have been my induction. But they didn't actually break it, so the contractions were just pushing the sac against me, so all the pressure and no dilation. If they broke the sac correctly, then I would never have needed Pitocin to begin labor, assuming there wouldn't have been a different problem.